Hi. So the first question is, the main goal of the progressive era was to create a better society. Do you think this goal was accomplished? Why or why not? I feel like yes and no. Yes, because there was a lot of changes within society. I mean, you had more laws, more safety laws towards workers, towards like the meat packing industry, towards you got like the women's movement. So there were positive aspects during the progressive era. And then no, because it wasn't really a better society. It was only a better society for the upper middle white class. And then for the lower class and people who were African American or other races or minority groups, it was kind of still the same. They still didn't have a lot of rights. They were still looked down upon. There was still a bunch of racism and lynching going around. So for it to say create a better society, it created a better society for a certain group of people, but not for the other. And that isn't really a better society. It's only really a better society for one group, but not for the whole of America during that time. And then the second question was, of the organization or issue campaign during the progressive era, which do you believe to have been the most impactful? There were a lot that I was reading. It was like the Muckrakers, something like that. The women's movement, the whole house, and like the environmentalism aspect of it. But I think the one that was really impactful I personally think, the women's movement. They made such a big demand for having the right to vote. And they were constantly protesting. There was like two main organizations that were battling for this right for women in order to vote. They were talking with the presidents. They were always doing stuff. They were always writing articles about it. They were asking people in Congress or people in the government why women shouldn't have the right to vote, and they would write about it. And it was just a whole big movement that I think was really impactful for a lot of women during that time. It had its flaws. Don't get me wrong, it had its flaws. A lot of the women in these organizations, they were purely white, and a lot of them, fought. They fought for women's right to vote, but they also fought to keep segregation going. To keep black voters not voting. To keep, because the women's rights never thought about including black women, because they wanted that segregation to keep on going, which is what they promised a lot of these men. They said, if you let us vote, the women, like, we won't let other people of color be allowed to vote. And so, that was very, very problematic. They took a big stance on really denying African Americans to vote, which was very problematic. But nonetheless, it was still a big movement that was happening. You had black activists also fighting for the right to vote, which I think should be more emphasized, because although white women's right to vote, they had a bigger organization. I think they were more planned, they were more sought after than African Americans' right to vote, but it was still a big impact, I think, during that time. And they got their voices heard, which I think is still great. And the other thing, I think, like, also including the whole house as impactful is also important. Sorry, what was her name? Adams, yeah. She had this whole thing where she, had a house and let people go, and like had daycare services. And that was also very impactful. She helped women out, a lot of them who were also facing poverty, and I think that was really important. There's a lot of, I think there was like a lot of important organizations going on during this time, but I think the women's movement was the most known, at that time, the one that was like really fighting for it. Although problematic, but still a good thing overall. And now my question is, in the Yelp reader answering objections to women's suffrage, do you believe it was wrong of Blackwell to not include children, insane people, or criminals to voice their opinion? Why or why not? So in this reading, she was talking about how women should have the right to vote, but excluded three main people, specifically, children, insane people, and criminals. And I just want to know if you think it was right for her to exclude those people. Because, children were also suffering through the progressive era. So insane people are really mentally ill. And, criminals, do they still have, do they have a right to vote or not? So I just want to know what you think.